Alright, what's going on, guys? Thanks for stopping by my channel. My name is John, and today we're going to be talking about whether or not design school is really worth it. Obviously, everything in this video is just an opinion from me, but I do have a BFA in industrial design, so I feel like I could offer at least some insight into this topic. Design school is definitely a pretty large investment of both time and money, so it's important to take into consideration whether or not this makes sense for your particular situation. And realistically, there's no black and white answer of yes or no to whether or not it's worth it. It's kind of situational and whether or not design school makes sense for you. So we'll go over some of the pros and cons, and you can take that information and decide whether or not it's an appropriate decision for you. So we'll start out with the pros. The first pro is that there's a clearly set out path for you to grow as a designer. If you're self-taught and just kind of watching YouTube videos or reading books about design, there's not necessarily a clear path for you to grow. At a design school, if you decide to go to one, there is a set curriculum and a set path for you to grow. They give you projects that increasingly grow on each other so that you learn the fundamentals of design to start with and slowly begin to learn more intricate details of the profession. For me, it was definitely nice to have a schedule and somebody to hold me accountable for creating the work that I was to create. However, if you're an insanely self-motivated person and don't feel that you need to be held accountable for the work and you're going to do it anyways, it might not be necessary. The second pro that we'll talk about is networking opportunities. And when you go to a design school, there is a ton of them, depending on the school that you go to. Networking opportunities can come from different design events or career fairs that your school holds. You can actually go and meet people from large companies and talk to them about your portfolio, get portfolio reviews, and begin to establish a network of people in the professional design community. Being in a design school shows that you're super serious about the profession and super serious about it being a career path for you. Sometimes it can make employers take you more seriously. Additional networking opportunities come from alumni relations. Alumni relations are great because you already have a common ground with the person that you're talking with. You both attended the same school. Having something in common with a potential employer can give you a serious leg up when trying to make yourself stand out from other potential job applicants. Depending on the design school and how active the alumni relations department is, they can also give you a big list of companies that are hiring in the field of design that you chose to study. The other great networking opportunity that comes from design school or art school in general is the opportunity to meet people from other disciplines of design or really any field of study. Personally, I met a lot of photography and film students who helped me grow as a photographer and a filmmaker, and it was definitely helpful to know a lot of those people who are in other disciplines. I think in that sense, design school or any other program can really help you be a more well-rounded person and understand things from a lot of different disciplines, rather than just design or whatever you choose to focus on. The people that I've met from other disciplines have seriously helped me grow as a designer and just professionally in general. Speaking of meeting people from new majors, one of the big benefits of going to college is that you are more socially exposed to a lot of different people. The social situations that you're introduced to in college definitely kind of help you grow as a person in general. Moving past networking, another really big benefit of going to a design school or any art program is that it's kind of a safe space for you to grow. Design school is kind of a low-risk situation in the sense that if you fail a project, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, maybe it's not going to look great on your GPA, but at the end of the day, it was a learning experience, and it's not like you're going to lose your job over the situation. It's definitely a safe space to grow both personally and professionally. And instead of a company throwing you to the curb and not using you again in the future for their design work, you can kind of get some constructive criticism from your peers in design school as well as your professors. One of my personal favorite things about going to design school was the access to the vast facilities that are available to you. Obviously, this is going to depend on the school that you go to, but I personally chose a technical school, so there was a lot of machines there, like CNC machines, 3D printing machines, laser cutting machines. Basically, anything that you ever wanted to make, you had access to the machines to make it. Obviously, there are 3D printing and other machining or printing services out there available to anybody, but when you go to design school, it's really cheap. For example, like an FDM printed part, pretty much like the maximum you're going to pay for it, even if it was like a giant part, was probably under $10. If you were to go through like a professional 3D printing company, it would probably be upwards of $100. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to make use of the facilities, and that's going to be kind of a deciding factor of whether or not design school is going to be worth it for you. Do you need these facilities? Do you think that it would be more effective for you to spend your money on paying a 3D printing company more money to print the part rather than investing in the education or investing in access to the facilities? Again, that's kind of a personal decision, and it's also really going to depend on the major that you choose and your design interests in general. Another little perk, speaking of discounts, is that a lot of times you get student discounts on stuff, whether it's a restaurant getting 10% off your meal or, going to order through the Apple Store, and I think it's 20% off or 15% off or something like that of all their products as a student. Little things like that definitely shouldn't be the deciding factor of whether or not you attend a design school, but it is kind of a nice little perk. Another thing I think is important to bring up is the access to large companies that you might get through attending a university. A lot of times at a university, they have career fairs or even creative industry day, which is what my university had. Basically a special career day just for the art students. It's really nice to be able to get access to large companies like that and prospective employers in the future. It's a great opportunity for you to go and not only network with the companies, but go get portfolio reviews and get insight from professionals in the industry. Again, if you were to go on LinkedIn and really hustle and try to get portfolio reviews from other people and basically just make connections with people, you could do it that way too, for sure. And a lot of times I think that might even be more effective, like really taking the initiative to go out and ask people for advice. But it is nice that design schools set that up for you. You don't have to put in too much effort to get a portfolio review or to network at large companies. Another nice thing about design school is the opportunity to actually work and build your portfolio working with larger companies. For example, my girlfriend was able to work with Milwaukee Tool Company and produce some packaging for them, which was a really cool project, and she actually came in second place. So Milwaukee Tools ended up giving them some money for their design work. It's a great thing to be able to put into your portfolio, showing that you've worked with large companies. Another really cool company that we were able to work with in school was Audi. The project probably wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be because of a number of factors, but it was a pretty cool thing to be able to say that you've done before, working with Audi before you even really get out of design school. It's definitely an opportunity that probably we wouldn't have gotten if we weren't in design school. Again, not to say that you couldn't get an opportunity like this if you were just trying to teach yourself. You never know, but being in design school definitely helps establish those connections and give you the opportunities to work with larger companies. The other benefit of that situation is that when you're working with a company for a school project is that professionals from those companies will give you insight on what you could change about your project to make it better, to make it more successful. And it's good to get professional industry feedback to make sure that your work isn't just some crazy arbitrary design, but something that could actually be manufactured or brought to the market. Whether you're a product designer or a graphic designer, it's nice to kind of get some professional insight. Okay, I think that pretty much covers the pros of design school. There may be more, and I would love to hear from you in the comments if you'd like to leave some below. But those are the major ones that I can think of off the top of my head. So let's take a look at some of the cons, or reasons you might decide to self-study as a designer. The biggest and most obvious one is the cost of design school. Tuition for most schools, while it varies, is usually around $40,000 to $50,000 per year, and if you're going for a 4-year BFA, that can really add up. So if your school's at $40,000 a year, that can be a $160,000 degree, and if it's at 50, it's a $200,000 degree, which is a serious amount of debt. Obviously, there's scholarships and financial aid available for most people, but it's definitely something to consider when deciding whether or not design school is right for you. The cost is pretty significant, and you could pay for a lot of online classes or things along those lines to help you grow as a designer outside of design school. Pretty much any information that you ever wanted to find about anything is really available on the internet or in book form. A lot of times, actually, I think reading books for me was more effective in terms of actual information retention versus a professor just talking at me for 3 hours about design. It lets you learn kind of at your own pace and go back and absorb different information that you may have missed if you were to just hear it from a professor. Speaking of learning pace, when you do go to design school, One of the most frustrating things to me was learning and growing at the speed of essentially the lowest common denominator. A lot of the times in any education, you kind of have to work at the pace of the person who is slowest at learning. And while it's obviously good to give everybody an opportunity to grow and learn, it does kind of suck that you're paying money for something and you feel like you could be progressing faster and more efficiently through the program than somebody who might either not be putting as much work into the program as you are, just isn't learning the information as fast as you are. Obviously, for design school in particular, there's kind of infinite growth, I guess, that's possible. So it's really not that big of a deal for design school in general. But if you're looking at a program like engineering, I can imagine that somebody who really picks up quickly on whatever engineers do in terms of like mathematics and stuff, you might get kind of frustrated with the people who aren't learning this stuff as fast as you are. So it's definitely something to take into consideration, whether or not you will get frustrated with people who are going slower than you are or not putting in as much work as you are. The one thing that I will say was probably personally most frustrating to me about the college experience in general was all of the unnecessary classes that I needed to take. I had to take a ton of stuff that was completely unrelated to design and unrelated to the profession that I was trying to go into. And while I came out a more educated, well-rounded person, I probably could have learned most of that information just reading articles or books on the internet on my own time. I feel like you probably could have done design school in maybe 2 years rather than the 4-year program that college made it. I think a lot of that is design schools or universities in general trying to squeeze more money out of you. And like I said, you can justify however you want. You do come out a more well-rounded person with a more in-depth educational background, but I don't know. I guess if you're really looking at it from just a purely career perspective, it's just frustrating to have to take a bunch of classes that you know you probably aren't going to be applying to your career. So yeah, I guess there's positives and negatives to that part, but for me, it was kind of frustrating a lot of times. And the last thing I'll talk about in terms of cons is that when you're applying for a design job, your portfolio is the number one thing that companies are going to look at. If you have a killer portfolio, you have work that really stands out from the rest of the crowd, you don't necessarily need a design degree. However, if you do have a design degree, there is a lot of jobs that require you to have some sort of bachelor's degree in college. So again, this is kind of like a double-edged sword. Can you get the job regardless of your degree? Probably. But it definitely pushes you to the top of the stack of applications that a lot of companies get for different design jobs. So while the portfolio is really the main thing that's going to land you the job, it might get you noticed more by a company if you do have a design degree. So I guess what's my final take on the situation as somebody who graduated design school only a few months ago? Would I do it over again? It's tough to say. I definitely had the thought of dropping out multiple times in the program because I was getting professional work doing video production and photo production. So personally, I don't know if I would do it over again. I did meet a ton of people through my design program and through my design school, and I will cherish those relationships for the rest of my life. And a lot of experiences I probably wouldn't have had if I didn't go to a college. But who knows? I mean, there's a ton of experiences that I probably missed out on because I was stuck going to university every day. So again, kind of a double-edged sword. And I don't know if I necessarily would go back and change my path. It's hard to say because you never know how things would have worked out. But it's definitely something that you should heavily consider before just jumping into going to a program. Additionally, design is kind of a really hard career to get into in general. So you really kind of have to know beforehand how passionate you are about design. Definitely don't spend the money if it isn't just a true passion because, I mean, there's a lot of other things that you could make more money doing, get a job easier doing. Design can definitely be a low-paying career option in comparison to something like packaging science. If you're out to make a ton of money, probably design school is not the best option or really the design career path in general. But if you are passionate about design and think that university could help you, I definitely don't think that it's a bad decision to go to design school. But again, depending on the type of person that you are, your financial situation, and the financial aid that you get, it's kind of hard to say whether or not it's worth it for everybody or not. For me personally, I think that I would do it over again, but that's just me. And like I said, it's kind of situational. It's not really a black and white. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? It's up to you. All right, I hope that gave some insight to whether or not the program's worth it. I know I didn't give like a clear answer, but I really don't think that there is a clear answer. So if you guys wouldn't mind leaving a like below if you enjoyed this video and actually made it this far, I would seriously appreciate that. And if you have any insights of your own, definitely drop them below in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. This is definitely a topic that I think deserves some conversation, so I'd love to hear what your opinions are, especially if you went to design school or took the less conventional route of just pursuing design as a career personally. All right, guys, thanks again for watching this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Later.